Hello and welcome to Red Mate. Today we're talking about the England call-up process and Gareth Southgate in particular and the way he kind of operates the national team. There's been a lot of recent events that have been happening, a lot of stories have come up, some of the fans have been booing at the games. So I basically just wanted to touch on that today and get my thoughts out. This is obviously a process where players get called up for the national team, and I've always kind of thought there's maybe two options you could go for in terms of how you select the players. So the first, I guess, is who's playing well right now, who's in form, who are the players that you want to take with you based on scoring goals at club level and who's achieving well and who you think will be the best fit for England. And I guess the second option, which it feels is Gareth Southgate's method as to how he chooses players, is maybe players he's worked with in the past and players he's already taken to tournaments and guys who he feels he can trust, and he obviously wants to play a certain way, and obviously these guys have trained with him many times. So it feels like he tends to do that, which, you know, in my opinion, I don't think that's maybe the correct idea. I think at all levels of football and certainly at club level, if you've got, say, a striker who scores a goal and he's in form, he's confident, you'd probably select him to play the next game. You want to kind of back the guys who are firing. It's probably only when someone's maybe fallen below their normal standard. We talked about it recently in terms of Arsenal rotating keepers, that maybe if someone's underperforming and their confidence is a little bit short, that's when you take them out. So it's when they're at their lower end of their game. But if you've got guys in the Premier League, you know, a big name that has missed out from the most recent international duty call-ups is James Ward-Prowse. He's hit the ground running at West Ham, it seems, and he's getting a number of assists and goals there, and it kind of would make sense for him to go to England. At least that's how it feels for me. He's been caught up in the past and we've seen him in an England shirt and we know what he can do. He's obviously great on a dead ball and great at putting in crosses and assists and things like that. So he can obviously be a bit of an asset, but Southgate, we've seen he's kind of selected players he's worked with in the past, the likes of Jordan Henderson, Harry Maguire, Calvin Phillips. And these players in particular are obviously fallen down the pecking order, it seems, at a club level. The likes of Harry Maguire and Calvin Phillips, I guess they're in the same boat in terms of they can't seem to get any minutes at club level. They're at great clubs, so there's a lot of talent within their team that the manager's picking ahead of them. But for me, it seems a bit crazy to think that they can get very minimal minutes at a club level and still get the England call-up. I feel like you want to be choosing guys who are playing week in, week out. And I guess a slightly different kind of avenue here, but Jordan Henderson, he's left the Premier League very famously. He's gone to Saudi Arabia along with a lot of other players who have made that same decision this summer. A great move for him and his family. His wages have gone through the roof and the lifestyle he's living, all this, but everyone knows, I think, that the Saudi League is a lot lower level than the Premier League and a lot of other European leagues as of right now. So I think that kind of shows maybe his intentions with football, how he kind of feels about it, where he feels he's at in his career right now and what his goals are in terms of what he wants to win and trophies he's kind of fighting for. So yeah, it seems a little bit strange to me. I feel like there's got to be some other England midfielders that can be chosen ahead of him, the likes of James Ward-Prowse, as I've mentioned, because if he's playing week in, week out in that Saudi league, I guess naturally your form's gonna drop off because you're not used to playing at those heights. Obviously, he's done that many times in the past, but you know, you see when people get injured or they're moving into a different team and they're out of form, these things can definitely be affected. The David Beckham documentary's obviously come out, and we've seen in these times that when he moved to the MLS, he was basically told in that time that if he wanted to play for England, he couldn't be playing there. The league wasn't deemed competitive enough, and the managers want their players at a club level, week in, week out, playing at the highest level to then be selected for the England team, where they obviously then want to hit the ground running and just make a smooth transition and just keep things in motion while they move there. So yeah, it's a very strange situation that kind of happens. For me, I'd obviously be on the side, as mentioned, as kind of choosing players that are in form versus players that you've maybe worked with in the past. Obviously, there's a big benefit to doing that too. But I think, you know, are you just going to go ahead and choose Gerrard and Lampard and Shearer and all these guys who have done well for England, or can we accept that there's naturally going to be a drop-off over time and players come in and out of form and you just want the best players for your team in that moment? The big thing that claimed a lot of headlines was a lot of fans were booing Jordan Henderson himself during the game, and Southgate kind of defended him and said, you know, this isn't right, he's getting booed. But for me, I kind of agree with that because it feels like the fans, you know, England and the team and Henderson and the manager, they are representing the people and the you know, the English fans who go there and support the team. So whilst they're booing Henderson, I feel like it's not his fault either. He's obviously gone out there and he's trying his best, but he's kind of fallen victim to Gareth Southgate's decision in terms of being selected. I feel like the people are just kind of angry that he has been selected over a couple other people, and they don't feel that it's right and that's fair and it's just. So they're kind of booing him. So I guess it's not necessarily his fault at all, and he's kind of, again, the victim of that. But that's just the way the fans are letting their feelings known for the selection process. And yeah, for me, it does seem very odd. We see the likes of Calvin Phillips, you know, he's at that Man City team. He's maybe competing with a guy in Rodri who's probably the best player in the league in that position, arguably in world football. But over recent weeks, we've obviously seen Rodri being injured, and Calvin really hasn't been able to get any minutes there either. And for someone who was so crucial to Leeds, I mean, you know, there's a big conversation there as to what's going on and what is the real reason he can't get in. Is it a fitness thing? He obviously had a few injuries he was suffering with towards the end of 2 seasons ago and the start of last season. But obviously they had a big game against Arsenal and he didn't get selected. Arsenal, very technical team. There's obviously going to be a huge midfield battle there that you think that Calvin Phillips would do well in. He did well for England at the Euros. Him and Rice seem to be that two-man, like the double pivot, I guess. Got a lot of legs in there, working hard. But anyways, he's getting selected for England. Obviously his England resume, like I mentioned just now, is very good. He's performed very well at previous tournaments. But my personal opinion is that you should be getting a call-up based on form and how you're playing right now. I think we see the likes of Ollie Watkins. He's doing well in the Premier League. He's scoring plenty of goals. He scored a hat-trick the other week against Brighton, and he gets called up to England, and no surprise, he scores for them as well. So strikers are a very confidence-based position, and we see that all the time. But I think all over the pitch, you want to be picking guys who are playing well and are in form. I think that's what makes you a deserved call-up, is doing that, because how else are you going to get called up to England if it's not from playing well? If Gareth Southgate's choosing guys who have played for him before and knows he can trust, how is anyone else going to infiltrate that team and find their way playing for England otherwise? Comparing it to a club level, which is obviously what we see most because the club teams play a lot more games. Every transfer window we see managers signing new players because they're looking to improve their team, and they're signing players that they deem are better, or maybe better prospects, or players that are really good right now that can come into their team and help. They're not sticking with players who they've already worked with, who have got a great understanding of the system and how to play for the team and how the manager wants them to play. Those club managers are focusing and prioritising better players and obviously future prospects, which I think is how England should do it as well, especially because they have very limited time in a small camp where the players come in and then they have a game a couple of days later, and then, you know, they're playing with England for a short amount of time, back to their clubs. They then come again, short amount of period with England, back to their clubs. So I feel it's almost essential then that, given it's a very limited time to work with these players, then it becomes even more important that you're bringing in players that are really good and they're hot and they're firing right now, so they can come in and do that job. Obviously the alternate argument, I guess, is that given the limited amount of time, they want players who can come in who already know the system. But we saw this international break, England versus Australia, it was only a friendly game. They weren't really fighting for qualification to any major tournament. So it definitely was an opportunity to bring in new players. And that's probably a really good introduction then to the England squad and get them used to how things work and playing a certain style that Southgate wants. But yeah, it just feels a little bit unfair. And as if you're an England fan, you obviously want to see the best players playing for your team. You obviously feel like if you're getting represented by these guys, you want them to win, and you just want to see the best players getting called up. So as a Liverpool fan, I'm a fan of Jordan Henderson, everything he did for the club, but even for me, it seems very strange that he's getting a call up, and I probably would say that spot should be given to someone more deserving who's playing at a much higher level. Because even in the past, we've seen the likes of Tammy Abraham when he was in Italy, just in form, Tomori as well, Jadon Sancho when he was at Dortmund. It kind of felt like these guys were being overlooked based on the fact that they weren't playing in England and in the Premier League. So, it looked like Premier League players were then getting favoured, and playing abroad wasn't necessarily helping for the selection, and Southgate was just kind of focusing on these guys who were playing there. Whereas now we're seeing the likes of Jordan Henderson get called back, which I guess has raised a lot of eyebrows and people are very surprised by that. And they feel he's very undeserving, which has led to the booing. And obviously putting my thoughts out there, I kind of am in agreement to that, because you want your top guys who are in form, who are firing right now, they come in. And fair enough if their league form and their domestic club level form slips and they're not doing too well, they're not getting in the team, they're struggling for minutes, I think that's when they push away, because you've got to do what you can week in, week out for your club, and only once you're at your peak will you then start looking for the England call-up, which should be the pinnacle for English players and where they're trying to get to, because not every English player can play for England. They've only got a certain amount of players they can take to a tournament and be within that squad. But across 20 Premier League teams, there's a lot more spots available for English players to come in and play football. So yeah, that's basically been my thoughts. I want you guys to chuck in the comments below, tell me what you think, whether you back Southgate and he should just pick players he can trust and he's worked with, or whether or not he should choose these guys who are in form and who you'd expect to come in and start firing straight away, and whether or not they should be rewarded for their form and get that call up, and whether you think that's fair or not. Smash the like button, make sure you subscribe as well. It's great to see the numbers increasing. But anyways, that's been all for today. I've been Ant, this has been Red Mate. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. We've seen him in it, and we've seen him in an England shirt, and we know what he can do.